I was not here last Sunday. Thank you to Father Fred for covering for me while we had vacation. I now have even more energy, so watch out. This whole thing started back in December with an angel appearing to Mary. And then we heard about Joseph having a dream. And now we're wrapping up this entire time with both a star and angels and a dream. It's a great way to pull it all in together. And when you hear about the Magi seeing a star, I think if we were to translate that today, if we were to write about it today, it would be more like the angel that you have on your nativity scene, the one that has glory to God and has big wings and is shining like a star. That would be more like what they would see than us looking up in the sky and seeing a star. And so we're wrapping up all of this with angels and dreams and images and visions. And with that, I have a little story to tell you. And this story happened on the day after Christmas, which our friends in Canada call it Boxing Day, right? Good. We're calling it in the Marshall family household, we're calling the day after Christmas Boating Day, because we went on a boat after Christmas. And it started this way. We were participating with Boxing Day, which for us is going to Walmart and buying Christmas decorations at 50% off. That's an annual Scottish tradition of ours. And so we, as we're driving, Christy, look out, it was 80 degrees and sunny. And she said, today would be a good day to go out on the boat. And men, if your wife ever tells you today's a good day to go out on the boat, you go out on the boat, right? That's exactly what we do. And so we did. Now, the difference with us going out on the boat now, as opposed to earlier, is that we had our boat in a dry dock valet service. So if Christy said, let's go out on the boat, I would simply call them, and 20 minutes later, like magic, the boat would be placed in the water, the engine would be warm, they will put 10 pounds of ice on the boat if you ask. Anyway, it's a great service. It's expensive, but it's a great service. And so we did that to get used to having a boat, and now we're feeling comfortable. It's on a trailer in a field over by, well, anyway, I can tell you where it is, but it's in a field. So I get the boat, we drive it over to the house, and the boys clean it up, and I charge the battery, and we head to the Palma Sola boat docking area. If you've seen the boat launch, if you're on the bridge to Anna Maria, right as you get onto the island, to your right, there is a very large a boat launch area. And that's where we went. And I have put the boat in before. But the difference about this time on Boxing Day is that I had not started the engine in 2 months. So when it's in dry dock storage, somebody else starts the engine for you. And today it is now my turn to do it. So this is my experience with outboard engines. And it all started when I was young, and we had an 8-horse Evinrude outboard on the back of our sailboat. All right? Now, the way you would start this thing is you would follow Dad's instructions. And I think his rule was, if you can start it, you can sail it. So, from 6 years old onward, that was my attempt to be able to get this engine to start. So you pull out the manual choke. Anybody? Manual choke? Do you know what that is? All right, so you pull out the manual choke, and then on the lever that makes the engine go, you turn it to a very specific dot that Dad has put on there. And that, to me, says start. So you do that, and then you reach under, and there's a tank down there with a ball, and you squeeze the ball, and it pushes the fuel into the engine. You then have 20 seconds to lean out over the edge of the transom to where the boat is, to grab the lever and to pull it. And you burn out about 1,000 calories by pulling it, and then eventually the engine starts. And then you have, like a helicopter pilot, Larry, you can tell me about this later, you have 3 seconds to do a number of things to keep the engine running. So you turn it to start, or you turn it to run, you play with the choke, you kick the gas engine back in so it doesn't slip out while you're saying. You do all that at one time, and magically the engine runs. So today we have a 21-foot powerboat, not sailboat. It has a Yamaha 130 4-cylinder 2-stroke electric start engine. Automatic choke. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. So it starts just like a car. It has a key, you turn it over, and boom, it just starts. So it also has an electronic thing that moves the boat, the engine up and down out of the water. It's really cool. And I just do this just for the fun of it because I'm the guy when sailing. So you put the sail up and then you have to reach back over the transom. You have to pull, and I'm not exaggerating, the engine weighs 10,000 pounds that you have to pull out. Okay, it's probably a 50-pound engine. You have to get it out of the water yourself. Now I've got a little switch. I can do it all myself. So the boat's in the water. The bow is still attached to the trailer. And I tell the family, who's anxiously waiting on the dock, each one has a bow line and a stern line. They're waiting, but the boat is still attached to the trailer because I don't know if I can start the engine. And so I said, well, here it goes. I stick the key in, I turn it to the right, and it makes this sound. It's a cute sound, and it's the starter motor trying to get the engine to start. And I'm just waiting, right? Where's the blue smoke? Where's that sound? And it doesn't happen. I'm like, okay. No engine after 2 months starts on the first try, for goodness sake. So I turn it off, turn it back on, and in. Like nothing's happening. So I turn it off. I look at the family, and their shoulders that started like this are now like this, right? They're holding the line. This is ridiculous, Dad. So I'm like, third time is the right. So nothing's happening, and I am now worried about burning out the starter, right? I don't know if you can. I didn't want to try. So I look at them and I say, this may not happen today. We may not be going out on the boat. And then it dawned on me, I haven't prayed yet. So I looked at them and I said, we need to pray. And they said, okay, Dad. So I said, this is the day the Lord has made. We rejoice and we're glad in it, and we hope that you'll let us go boating. If it's in your will, let the engine start. 30 seconds later. Shut it off. I am frustrated. I pull the key out, pull the clip off. I'm like, I guess we're not doing it today. Meanwhile, behind us on the dock, now it's a long dock, and if a boat wants to come ashore, they tie up pretty far behind you and they wait in line. Behind us was a 25-foot Mako. She's a beautiful fishing boat, and she has the center console with a green top and a beautiful Yamaha engine, brand new boat. And it pulls up quietly and is waiting behind us. So I look at them and I say, well, I think it's time for us to go. And the two men get off the boat. Now, they are professional. I mean, they don't look like salty fishermen, but they look like they know what they're doing. And I have no way to describe what they look like, except that they're professional, middle-aged, a little bit older men who tied up the boat very easily, jumped off the boat, and they both have made eye contact with me, and they're watching. And I look at one of them and I say, do you happen to know anything about starting a cold engine? And one looks at me and says, you have to find the pump and pump the fuel. But it has an electric start. Why would, anyway, so I said, I don't see it. And he said, every engine has one, look for it. So I start opening up panels and I'm off the back on the stern, and there it is, next to the fuel filter. I didn't know I had a fuel filter. Anyway, so there's the fuel filter, so I just pump it. I'm like, this reminds me of when I was a child. And so I close it, and I go back up to where, you start the engine. And then the other guy says, you need to open the choke. And I said, open the choke? This thing has an automatic choke. And he said, no, let me show you. So he came onto the boat, he took the key, and he said, when you start the engine, you can push the whole mechanism in. That opens the choke, then you turn it. And I said, okay. And he said, you want to see? And I said, yeah. So he pushed it in, turned it. This is what I heard. Blue smoke everywhere, and it's on. And I look at him, and I said, thank you. And he said, no problem. Actually, I don't think he said anything. And he got off the boat, he and his friend, and so then I told the family, it looks like we're going. So I jumped off the boat, untied the bow from the trailer, drove the trailer back up to where it's supposed to go, grabbed our bag, and as I'm walking back, I thought, I didn't thank them properly. And I need to say to them, as a good pastor, that I had just prayed and that you all answered our prayer. I was going to thank them that way, except they were gone. And so was their boat. So I get to the boat, And I look at my family, and we're getting ready to go, and I said, "Did you thank those two men?" And they turned around. They're gone. If you've ever been to this boat ramp, there is a long passageway that you must follow because it's so shallow on both ends that you have to go out straight. You have to go directly north. And then you have a choice of turning right to go back under the Anna Maria Bridge, or you can go straight out to St. Petersburg. That speed limit is 5 knots. The amount of time it takes me to drive the car up, park it, if they had immediately gotten their boat, I still would have seen them motoring out. They were gone. I looked at the family and I said, "I think we have just seen some angels." Angels do very specific things. One of the things about angels is that they are very direct. They don't tell you stories, they don't exaggerate, they just tell you this is what you do. So I looked at him. Have you ever started an engine cold? Find the fuel pump and pump. It was very direct. And then I said, once I was done with that, he said, "You have to open the choke." How? I'll show you. Very few words. And then it fired up. One of the joys I have about this is that any angelic encounter I've had, generally, I'm not around my family for all of us to see and to experience what happens when it happens. And we all got to see it. So this season, it starts with an angelic encounter. It has a dream. It has a vision. It has all of that. And we put it into a nativity scene because it's beyond words to be able to understand what it is to have a Savior born, to have him in a place where animals are, and to have some very wealthy people, some foreigners, show up and bring gifts and tidings. And so every nativity scene has the Magi. It has them bringing gifts. And one of the gifts they bring is we were told to do this. We were told to bring you these gifts. Your nativity scene looks probably different than ours. Each one of ours has a different type of nativity scene. Likewise, each one of us who has an encounter with the holy, each one of us who experiences an angel, it's a different experience, yet it has the same look and shape and structure. So next year, I'm going to talk about the revelation of the Magi, and this is a book that was recently written. Brent Landau is the author. He got into the Vatican files and found the original works that were written about the Magi, and he believes he found the source that Matthew used in chapter 2 to write this story. The story that every nativity scene has, the story that every Christmas season we need to sing about the three kings, right? This is an important thing to us. And he found what he believes, the material that Matthew had to talk about this strange experience. And so in one of the appendices, he had written that one of Matthew's tossed out, it's called the Opus Imperfectum in Mattheum. It's the one that got rejected or not brought into the full gospel. It talks about the Magi, and it says the Magi were called that because in silence and with a silent voice, they glorified God. Every year during their threshing harvest, they went up to a certain mountain, and having a certain cave in that mountain, they were praying and glorifying God in silence for 3 days. And they did thus for each generation until by that chance their generation saw that star and the blessing of it. It was speaking to them. It taught them and instructed them to set out for Judea. And while they journeyed for 2 years, the star went ahead. Neither food nor drink ran out from their pouches. They were continually worshiping God and glorifying God even more attentively than before. And they preached to all the people in their race, and they instructed many. And finally, after the resurrection of the Lord, when the Apostle Thomas went to that province, they joined with Thomas, having been baptized by him, and they were made assistants of his preaching. They were minding their own business, worshiping God in silence, 3 days on a hill, when God said, "Go." When they got there, Mary and Joseph had already had in a dream that they needed to flee to Egypt. If you're a carpenter traveling to a foreign land where you do not speak that language, this means financial hardship, and they were not well off to begin with. And so I imagine in their prayers, they are praying, "Lord, how are we going to do this?" And then one day, some men arrived, and women arrived. I should point out that Revelation of the Magi, it would seem highly unlikely that these men would travel without women. And so it was men and women arrived, and it's a big entourage, a big group, and they brought frankincense, gold, and myrrh. They brought commodities. They brought them commodities that they can trade and they can use and they can hide. It's hard to hide silver coins. It's easy to hide gold and frankincense and myrrh. And they used that, and one of the stories of the Magi is that the Magi were told in a dream to not go back to Herod, as we heard in today's gospel. And they actually escorted them to Egypt and left them there. And for 3 years, they used the gifts that they were given until it was time to return home. Each one of us that has a nativity scene, it looks different. Each nativity scene has at its center an angel that brings about tidings of good news, an angel that instructed and brought the Magi there. It has Mary and Joseph. It has barnyard animals. And it's all based on something we have to take by faith. That reasonable, normal human beings were going about their lives, and an angel appeared, and everything changed. So with your encounters with the Nativity, your encounters with the Holy, your times when things happened and there's no explanation, no rational explanation for how that could occur, for the prayers that you say and you wonder if God hears, for those times that people show up in your lives and are like angels and then they disappear. For all of us, each of these stories are different, yet they're also all the same about rational human beings encountering and experiencing the Holy. We're named all angels. They're all around you. And God hears our prayers and interrupts our lives in something as simple as trying to start an engine to go out onto the bay to experience the goodness of Florida. God shows up and gives us direction and makes us wonder about the epiphanies and the glories of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen.